Welcome friends to a time of terror and foul horror, when we view an episode featuring Friday the 13th's original killer, Mrs. Voorhees.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
Although the only thing she butchers here is her southern accent.
Political fundraising.
Yes, it's the spookiest Columbo of them all, the perfect one for the Halloween season. Death hits the jackpot. Can you believe that after this episode there are only 10 Columbos left over a span of 12 years? This is the gateway to the increasingly thin on quality late period of the show, featuring some of my personal least watched programs. It's the one where the guy wins the lottery, and it's one of few episodes that tells us exactly when it's happening. In this case, the murder itself occurring on Halloween night. The setup is great with the long tracking shot through the party, the costumes and decorations, the cloaked and hooded killer, and of course Betsy Palmer as the murderer's wife. The murder sequence is also one of the longest, creepiest, and most brutal. But there's something not quite right about all this. The Halloween party is basically just a costume party.
Should we have a theme?
How about come dressed as your favorite millionaire?
There's black and orange balloons and trick-or-treaters, but we don't get a lot of Halloween flavor. Freddy gets conked with a champagne bottle, like Miss Lysanka in Murder by the Book, but on Halloween, shouldn't he have been killed with poison candy or an exploding pumpkin? There is a nice moment when you realize that a tombstone labeled Freddy, adorned with claw marks, is present at his wake. Casting an iconic slasher villain in a Halloween episode couldn't have been coincidence, but she's barely even in it, hardly interacts with Columbo at all. The whole thing is misdirection.
A switch.
Another example of how Columbo eschews the traditional trappings of TV. We don't see the lieutenant in costume, and there's nothing really scary, unless you count Rip Torn's gross sex scenes. Just like the corned beef and cabbage clue in our St. Patrick's Day episode, Columbo goes to the guillotine, here it's Halloween simply to set up the clue with the monkey and the costume medallion. In fact, far from being scary, Death Hits the Jackpot is hilarious, right alongside Murder Under Glass as one of the funniest entries. A lot of late period Columbo tries to be funny, with Peter Falk mugging for the camera or supposedly adorable supporting characters, but this one has an ace in the hole: Rip Torn. He's one of the few legitimate stars of the new era, and he makes every scene he's in.
Well, I'm afraid you're not hearing me, Lieutenant.
His delivery is inspired.
The craftsman must have been an inspired man.
I love his Southern gentleman act and his frequent use of sir, stealing Columbo's usual shtick.
Yes, I hear you, sir.
I appreciate that, sir.
He puts on one of the best displays of feigned grief in the series.
God. No.
And I laugh every time he says Freddy.
Freddy. Being Freddy. But Freddy and me. Oh, Freddy. Well, that sounds like Freddy. Wonderful. Freddy.
Throughout the episode, Leon explains Freddy's unusual behavior, buying champagne and ordering a luxury car, as him being a delusional slacker living in a fantasy land.
I mean, that kid, he was in the clouds. It was all fantasy.
Based on what we see, Freddy may be down on his luck going through a messy divorce, but he's a likable guy, talented and self-employed. You have to question whether Leon is really describing himself here. He says Freddy's broke.
He was broke.
But he's broke.
I'm broke.
And he shows himself to be an effortless liar.
You'd have these people walking through all the rooms, taking pictures.
You can tell Columbo knows this too.
Do you remember the name of the real estate agent that showed him those houses?
In their final showdown, which is a classic, you can tell he's delighted to finally call Leon out.
Now that is a lie.
What a great payoff. Sometimes after the murder, the killer can almost disappear as Columbo himself takes center stage. But here, Torn continues to dominate. The scenes without Torn lose a lot of steam. Do we really want to spend our time with Freddy's dreadful, eccentric neighbors? Look at these comedy cops. Duh, could they be any more stupid? Look at this guy's hat. Come on now. Nancy is set up as this bewitching temptress.
You're the devil in disguise.
But she has minimal on-screen magnetism. Freddy is one of those victims who remains very present after his death. A lot of the clues depending on his actions and personality. Some characters exist just to get killed off. Like, does anyone really remember this guy from Dead Weight? While Jackpot is goofy, Falk himself is pretty restrained. He imparts an air of conscious menace when he's questioning Leon and Nancy. You really do see the keen mind behind all the affectations. I especially like when he keeps questioning Leon about how he reacted to winning the lottery.
Yeah, so what did you say?
Wait, honey? Honey? That's my wife.
Clearly smelling something not right with the whole story. The pleasure of watching pros like Falk and Torn helps cover up the weaker aspects. Talk about your gripping openings, a minivan pulling out into traffic, which director Vincent McAveety would use again to kick off Strange Bedfellows. McAveety is a frequent late-era director with 7 Columbos to his credit, although I can't say any of them are particularly well directed. In this initial scene, he has the 2 actors circle around a chair, I guess for lack of anything else to do. Very broad and cartoonish. And here, Columbo flips through some pictures containing an important clue, and it goes on way too long. We scan these pictures again and again, and we go through them again at the end. But it's not all bad. The monkey struggling to get into the murder room is a great touch. Did you enjoy the sitcom music by Steve Dorff, who also forgettably scored the last episode, Murder of a Rock Star? The only good moments are these quivering strings, which make me think of American Psycho. Writer Jeffrey Bloom is another returner, having worked on Agenda for Murder and Columbo Goes to College. There's no shortage of good clues, but they all seem a little familiar, like the broken watch to establish time of death clue, never seen that one before. The final tangential fingerprint clue is nifty, but doesn't it remind you of Suitable for Framing?
We're not looking for your prints. That's not your fingerprint.
How about the accomplice calls killer pretending to be victim clue?
It's Freddy.
We saw that in A Friend Indeed,
Yes, dear, yes.
A Case of Immunity,
Thank you, Yusuf.
An Exercise in Fatality.
I'll see you on Monday, huh, Jane?
You get it. There are also clumsy moments like Leon telling us he's broke,
I'm dead broke.
instead of just showing us. Also, this is October 1991 and his broker's report is dated January 1990. These weaknesses are further proof that a good guest star heals all wounds. Replace Rip Torn with another actor and Death Hits the Jackpot wouldn't really be worth watching. There is subtext here beyond the more cartoonish facade. There's an odd symmetry to Leon's wife taking a bath,
Enjoy your bath, baby.
while Leon drowns Freddy in the bathtub. And then later Nancy calls from her bath. The lottery announcer also says this.
Unless he wants to sleep in the bathtub tonight.
And let's not forget an echo where the nephew kills the uncle in his bathtub. There's also the greenhouse jungle, where again an uncle kills his nephew for money. And is it my imagination, or is Freddy's apartment building and this junky stairwell also the one from the beginning of the McAveety-directed Undercover? I just tend to notice things like this.
Very unusual and attractive quality in a man.
Freddy in his darkroom is mirrored by Paul Galesko in his darkroom. Columbo inspecting the lingerie here harkens back to Murder in Malibu. I'd compare Death Hits the Jackpot to Swan Song, episodes with notable weaknesses that succeed on the strength and charisma of their guest star. Like Johnny Cash, Rip Torn's presence here makes this a good gateway episode for new fans. Watching a pro like him work alongside Falk reminds you that even this late in the show's run, Columbo is still a prestige program, attracting the best talent that Hollywood has to offer. Alright, stop that there.
Young girls have picked them everyone.
Oh, when will they ever learn? Oh, when will they ever learn?
You know, my wife, she bid $80 for a footstool that was made out of coffee cans. Can you imagine that?
No.